morning, everybody. May I introduce first of all myself. My name is László Balogh, and presently I am Deputy State Secretary for the Financial Affairs in the Ministry of Finance of Hungary. It is a special pleasure that on the occasion of the Money Week, which takes place in Hungary right now, I have the pleasure to be a volunteer teacher about financial education, family budgeting, more precisely, how it will help the youth, how it will help young families, and how it can be used for increasing our own wealth and to create stability and security in our own household. Having said that, maybe I also tell you that in my former life, I used to be ambassador to the OECD in Paris, and I spent there 8 years. And before that, I also served as vice president to the Hungarian Financial Supervisory Authority. But let's back to our subject, which is family budgeting. First of all, what we are speaking about when family budget is mentioned. Maybe from news, from media, you are aware that all national governments, including the Hungarian government, every year is supposed to produce a national budget, where revenues on one hand and expenses on the other hand are very clearly enumerated, listed, and put into a law. Of course, families are not supposed to make the parliament and create a law, but at least at the level of the family, it is important to have a family budget. What family budget is about? First of all, in all families or at individual level, everybody has got certain revenues, incomes, which can be a salary, which can be, I would say, gift from grandparents on the case of anniversaries, on the case of birthdays, and even there are student work around. When there is a student work, there's a salary behind that. And there are, of course, expenses. Of course, if you look at family level, you have much larger expenses than at the individual level. But both are important. There are fixed expenses. If you are living in an apartment or in a house, in a family house, you are supposed to pay the bill, in the sense that there might be a renting bill or there might be a loan of the house, and that has to be a regular basis to be billed. There are the utilities bill, like the gas, like electricity, like telecom, and that is also important to be billed. In most cases, these fixed or otherwise called recurrent costs cannot be changed too much. Of course, I would open here a bracket. Even with energy bills, there is a chance to reduce the bills. For instance, if you have in a house lighting, and the lighting is done with very traditional bulbs and electric lighting, then it can consume a lot of energy. But if you want to make savings on the electricity bill, of course, if you change all your lighting to LED type of lighting appliances, I'm sure, and I have my personal experience, that will save you a lot of money. I can tell you that in my own household, when all the lighting was changed into LED lighting, very soon a 30%, I'm not joking, a 30% reduction in the electricity bill was absolutely apparent. So that is something which can be done. But going back to the budget, there are costs and expenses which are unexpected costs. And that's why in the budget it might be useful to build up in a certain way reserves. There are unexpected events. The washing machine can break down from one day to another. And imagine poor mother being there with 3 children and no washing machine around. It's a catastrophe from a household point of view. So very suddenly and very rapidly there is a need, if that cannot be repaired because it's too old, it's 10 years old or 15 years old, there might be a need to invest in a new washing machine, which is a quite substantial expense. But if you build up your own reserves at family level and the budget makes recourse to that reserve, then you don't have a problem because you are prepared. The family is fully prepared for unexpected events and unexpected expenses. Of course, that can be the same with medical expenses. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, disease or any accident can arrive to any one of us at any moment. Usually, if you get out from work, or the family, or the father or the mother is getting out of the work, the salary after a while is reduced, and that has to be, in a certain way, to be prepared for. Reserves may, at this stage, also use this purpose. So that's very important too. Getting back to budget, what is important that when you see your whole income on the one side of the budget, and you put all the expenses foreseen and unforeseen on the other side of the budget, it should be at the level of 0. My advice would be, of course, that a certain percentage, let's say 10% of the whole income, should be put in saving or building up reserves for unexpected events and unexpected expenses. We are looking at budget. Of course, we might have to fix different financial goals. And there are very short-term goals. Spring is around. There are some clothing needs. A new jean is absolutely necessary for myself. And whether I like it or not, but within 2 months, I have to invest in a new jean. That's good. That's a short-term goal, and you can put aside some money for that. There might be medium-term objectives. Summer is reaching, and hopefully when the pandemic goes away, one would like to travel. One would like to spend some time at a lake, at a river, or maybe at the sea. That costs a lot of money, but you can prepare for that, saving throughout several months, that by the time summer is arriving, the summer vacation is arriving, you can have your own money to spend for the vacation or travel time. And these objectives are very important, but there might be very long-term financial goals as well. In a family, for instance, where the family started in a small apartment and one child arrives after the other and the apartment or the house becomes small. That's a very big investment to buy a bigger house or build a new bigger house or get access to a bigger apartment. In that case, you have to make savings for the long terms during several years. And in that case, you have to count that with certain loans or credits will be needed as well. In case of housing, of course, you can have access to 15-year-long, 20-year-long, even 25-year-long mortgage loans. But we will come back to that. If in your budget there is a debt service requirement, so you are supposed to pay off the debt, that has to be a number one priority under all circumstances. If you don't pay the electricity bill, that's a serious problem. If you don't pay your gas bill, that's a serious problem. But if you don't pay your debt, that's a catastrophe itself. So anytime when you have, I would say, fixed expenses in your budget, the first thing you have to do, if you happen to have debts that has to be paid immediately and regularly and on time. And if for whatever reason it is impossible because an accident happens to the family or whatever other external reasons make it impossible to pay back the debt, then you have to turn to the bank right away and explain your unfortunate situation and ask for solution. Most banks, I would say all the banks, at this stage are ready to negotiate and give longer period or even pause your obligations, provided you inform them and you started to say that you have the intention to pay it, just right now you are in unforeseen difficulties. That's very important. Debt is number one priority. So looking at the budget, and those people who are not fully aware what family budget and family budgeting is, they are inclined to think that a budget is a straitjacket, and that keeps you really away from you want to do, and your hands are tied. But it is not the case. I think that a well-constructed and a considerate family budget or an individual budget will help you to give you the freedom. And even at the end of the month, you might have access to your resources, your money, and you exactly know what is important and what is unimportant. There are some budgeting tips how it can be prepared. So first of all, budget according to the experience and according to many practices is best to be done when it's a zero budget. Zero budget meaning that the revenue side and the expenses side is in balance. And if it is in balance, that means that at the end of the day, that's zero. What that can be built up? Of course, first you group your expenses, what cannot be avoided, which is a must. I would say the needs, electricity bill, debt, gas bill, telecom subscription, or even if you have Netflix subscription, Spotify subscription, that's a recurring cost. And if you want to have them, then that comes each and every month which you are supposed to pay. There might be other costs, food, drinks, movie, and others, which are not a must, but still you may wish it. And given what are the revenues, a certain amount of money for grocery, for drinks, for movies, for entertainment, to concerts, can be separated also in the budget and planned. And there is, and that would be my advice, to create something between 10 to 20% of saving, or with other words, reserves. And if you combine these reserves and saving with short-term, medium-term, and long-term financial goals, then you will be absolutely secure and safe. If you are in the family, it is very useful to make the budget together. Of course, you should not forget that every month is a little bit different. Just think of that in most cases, winter months are using much higher energy bills for heating. In the summer months, you are spending much more money under normal circumstances for traveling, to going to beaches, and being with friends than most cases in the winter time. That has to be taken into account. And of course, when you are putting together the expenses, those which are needed, those which are wished, and those which are may turn into the picture, you have to prioritize. Take first the most important one and go step by step. If it turns out at the end of the day that the overall value of the expenses is higher than the revenue side, then you have a problem. What can you do to overcome that breach? There are two possibilities. You are increasing the income. How you can increase an income? Being a student, for instance, you can, go for some student work and get some extra salary. Or you offer for your grandmother or to the neighborhood that you could do some household work for some pocket money. that could increase your income. That's one possibility. Of course, on the expenses side, you can trim also your expenses. If you look what you have written into, you can ask from yourself that I have calculated with going 10 times to the movie. Is it really absolutely necessary? Maybe I only go 5 times in a month. That could be one solution. Or you look after that in certain cinemas and movies, there are certain subscription or bonus type of possibilities, especially for students. And then you don't buy tickets alone and individually all the time, but you try to get some reduction and discount on the basis you are a student. That's also trimming the expenses. And one has to ask the question, is all the expenses absolutely necessary? Maybe there are other ways and means to get some clothing. Is really the brands, the very, I would say, fashionable trends are the most important, or you can get more or less the same tennis shoe with half price if it is not so well-known brand. These are all elements which you can combine, and on the one hand you can increase your income and you can decrease your expenses. And if you are, for instance, subscribing to different internet possibilities like Netflix, HBO, and others, you should also look at whether you really make use of all of them. Do you have at all time to look at them? Maybe it would be worthwhile to stay only with one, or not too many, or do you use Spotify in the way you wish to? Anyway, these are just examples, and of course everybody will learn how to do it. It is budget making and budget construction is a bit learning by doing. But let's try it. And the last point which I want to make is there are plenty of online budgeting tools which we are going to speak about. The online budgeting tools helps and really gives a helping hand to everybody to create his own element. And the last point which I wanted to make, online budgeting. There are on the internet plenty of online budgeting tools, and that is really helpful. You shouldn't take your little book or booklet, or you should not make Excel sheets at all, but there are ready-made budgeting tools. For instance, one of them in Hungary, which is absolutely new, is Jeton, which is available on the website, which is called okosan-a-pénz7.hu, which is in English is smart finance, and that access can be done. Before that, of course, I have to tell you that family budgeting is in Hungary, it is not extremely, I would say, popular and not extremely frequent. 1/4 of the Hungarian families is preparing some kind of family budget. In other countries in Europe, in the OECD, this figure can go up to 80%. In France, for instance, this figure is 3/4. That means 3/4 of the population, 3/4 of the families are regularly preparing their own family budget. So that's very important to know. I think that we in Hungary could go forward and could improve that figure very soon. If you go to the mentioned homepage, which is okosan-a-pénz7.hu, then you get there a calculator which helps you, a kind of an online tool, how to make private or family budget. It opens up, and here this is the income side. And for instance, in this application, you have the salary, you have because that's for all ages. You have pensions. There are the cafeteria is also mentioned. Or if you get some scholarship from the university, that is also mentioned. And all other possible incomes, which in the case of a Hungarian family can become into the picture. And if you just write in all the incomes and all the spending which you are supposed to do, this calculator, this tool, is making a visual presentation of the share and the structure of your expenses. And this visual type of visualization of the structure of the expenditure gives you a possibility to say, oh God, these are all purchases and shopping. Should I spend 25% of my all income to shopping? Of course, you can get even more detailed. What kind of shopping? You are looking your own spending and you say, out of that, 80% is food. Is it absolutely reasonable? Or you would say, probably it's not the case with most of the Hungarian families, but 25% is cigarettes. Is that reasonable? No, it is not reasonable. So there are plenty of, it may give you plenty of ideas how and where you can trim your cost and where you have to pay much higher attention to your spending. So in that sense, you can see here what automatically comes out from that tool where, as I mentioned, housing, gas, electricity, utilities are mentioned, groceries are mentioned, new clothes, snacks, even video games are mentioned, because these are really cost. And if you say, oh God, there are certain areas where there is a place for reduction, or at the end of the day, the consumption of gas and electricity was lower, then you get some saving at the end of the game. On yearly basis, and that's very important, you can save a lot of money in different areas. So being conscious of how you spend your income, which you were working hard, or you have got as pocket money from parents, how you best use of that money is very important, and that makes you think over what are your priorities, whether to go only for entertainment, very expensive concerts or discos, or saving on that, let's say to cut it into half, these kind of expenses, you could invest in, I would say, in a mobile phone, in a modern smartphone, or in a tablet, or in a laptop, or whatever, which is your priority wish. Sometimes, with very small cuts, you can arrive to very important savings if you look at the year. What we can see here, saying that money is a terrible master, but an excellent servant. What it means, which is absolutely true. If you are exposed and you are not controlling your expenses and income, you can be dominated by the money or the lack of money. If you can master yourself, your income and expenses, and you can get to a balance, practically to a zero budget, then you dominate your money flows. And that's important. And at that moment, money will serve you and not you will serve the money. That's very important, and I would say very meaningful, and one has to keep this in mind. It's not only P.T. Barnum who has said that, but there is a Hungarian writer whom you might know very well, Géza Gárdonyi, who had one of his romans a very similar sentence for that. So most probably people around the world, but also locally here in Hungary, arrive to the same wisdom very soon. Of course, we did not speak about very long-term savings, and that's also something which one has to be aware of. Maybe not at the level when you are students, but very soon you are getting out from school, you are getting to university, and you are getting back to the work. When you are 24, 25, 26, you are starting your working career. Of course, the world opens for you, but everybody has to think of the fact that 40 years passes very rapidly, and 40 years after, you are getting retired. Of course, there is a public retirement scheme, and pension is paid on the basis of your salary. And that pension, by and large, gives you a normal and decent life, even after you are retired. However, you might have extra wish when you get retired and you are 65, you are 66, and you feel still young. If you want to make sure that you have a security, a financial security 40 years later when you are getting retired, you can make savings for the pensions, private savings for these pensions. There are different schemes for that. With very little saving during 40 years, you can save a huge amount of money by the time you will have get to retirement. That's also an issue which one to think over. It's absolutely understandable when you are 25, that's not your first thought. But if you start to do it later, when you are 40, 45, or even 50, a much higher amount of savings should be put aside. So my advice would be that if not at 25, but at least at 26 or 27, when you are in the workflow and you are you are employed or you are working, a small amount of money for pension saving would be absolutely normal, useful, and very beneficial once you get to the age when retirement comes. Maybe a few words about the Hungarian National Strategy on Financial Literacy, which has a Hungarian nickname or slogan, Okosan a pénzzel, which in English looks like smart finance. The Hungarian government in 2017 decided that a new strategy, a national and overarching strategy should be put in place. The reason for that was that the overall financial literacy of the Hungarian population is, I would say, mediocre, to say the least. And we are convinced, and the government is convinced, that if we prepare the population, and especially youngsters, students in the schools, that financial affairs and financial matters are a very important part of our everyday life. And we need to have the knowledge, we need to have the information, we need to have the capabilities to manage these financial issues. Then each and every individual, each and every family will be better positioned to get a stable, to get a secure life, and maybe when they are in the need of loans and credits, for instance, for investment in a house or in an apartment, I would say the consumer traps, the financial consumer traps of these financial service providers could be avoided. And that's very important. Knowledge, in a certain way, awareness, consciousness, considered decisions create a kind of a self-defense. And this self-defense makes you more confident when you are making financial decisions. Financial issues and financial products, financial services are not good or bad. They are there, but one has to have the knowledge. That's why when one has the knowledge and the awareness, that's much easier to take confident decisions and good decisions. What it means, that for instance, just to tell you a few examples, when you need a personal loan, which may happen with a family, or you need a mortgage loan, one should before that look around what is the supply, what is the offer of the banks. Because the same loan for 15 years, let's say 10 million Hungarian forints, can be offered with huge differences. There are, if you look at the present situation, is just we take really a 15-year loan with 10 million Hungarian forints. The difference which has to be paid back to Bank A or to Bank B might arise to the difference almost to 1 million forint. So you can make a good decision to have, to spare on one hand 1 million forint, paying back all the credits, or you did not have a good decision and you pay back much more. So comparing and considering all the possibilities and selecting the best suitable solution is a very important element of that, for instance. So the important thing is that when you get to the wood, which meaning the financial services area, the financial products area, you should know exactly the path and find your way, but you shouldn't be afraid of all the risk of the forest, all the risk of the financial products. And if you master that, you don't have to be afraid. And nobody has to be a financial specialist or a broker, just the knowledge and the awareness which is needed for everyday life. It is not so complicated, but as anyone can learn how to ride a bicycle, how to swim very early, in the early age, I think the capabilities, the skills, how to manage financial affairs is also very important to be learned very soon. And that will pay off, I'm sure. And at the end of the day, if we take the whole society, the whole country, the national economy, where the smallest, I would say, components of that society are the families, and the family budgets are in order, they are stable, they are balanced by and large, and reserves are built up, just like in the national budget, then I am sure that all families will be better positioned to better manage their wealth, and that gives a greater economic and social stability, not only for the families themselves, but also for the whole society. I am sure about that. Maybe a few words about that. In Hungary, in the recent years, public education has become part of the financial education. Now in the national curriculum, there are plenty of areas where financial awareness is part of different subjects. In the vocational training area, there is a special subject about financial knowledge and entrepreneurial knowledge. And these are the books which were elaborated on gratis, free of charge, by the foundation, the Financial Compass Foundation, which is available for all schools in digital format. So that helps through different examples, different cases, to get acquainted with the daily situations. One other point which we are just living right now, that part of the financial awareness and knowledge is that we should use much less cash. And we should use electronic instruments to pay our own bills. It is much more hygienic, especially during the pandemic. It is much more, I would say, less risky, because if you have cash with you, or you keep huge cashes in your apartment or house, that can be stolen very easily, that can be robbed, and not speaking about if there is an accident, a household accident, a fire or something like that, and it burns out, no one will compensate for you. Contrary to the electronic payment, it is absolutely safe, and overall, although we hear about certain frauds time to time, but overall the fraud or the damage created by the electronic payments is absolutely less, much less than crimes committed with cash. So I would urge anyone and encourage anyone that presently using the mobile phones, using credit cards, or whatever electronic ways in internet buying and otherwise, use, please, to the extent you can, please your available tools for electronic money. And we have some cooperation with students. You might know these journals and magazines where the Ministry of Finance on a regular basis helps to make certain articles, certain interviews, and giving some advice how you can approach financial issues. And this year, we are launching a huge financial test, the Jeton financial test. And I once more want to show you this test, where on this slide you can achieve that. The younger generation has got some video games also, or with the mobile application, where challenges in the world of money, you can even have some games to be played. You have to arrive to different levels. You can gain different bonuses, and during these different steps, you learn a lot about the financial world and the financial issues. During the summer, we are organizing summer camps, and during the summer camps, when youngsters are doing all kind of excellent and exciting adventures, during these adventures, some financial squeeze, some financial type of games are also introduced and presented in those camps. At the university level recently, special so-called Fintelligence centers, which is financial literacy centers, were established basically in Miskolc, Debrecen, Pécs, and Budapest, where all the university students have the possibility in an interactive manner to get acquainted with the present financial issues. And those universities are open also for middle schools in the region. So please try to reach out to these universities. They will be happy to receive middle school students as well. And finally, the Ministry of Finance, the Minister of Finance, established an award for enhancing financial literacy. And this award is given in different categories: best students, best teachers, and best schools every year. So if you have in your environment a very good student in financial affairs, a very good teacher in that area, and a very good school which you are aware of, please don't hesitate to propose them for this award. The web page, which is called okosan-a-pénzzel.hu, Okosan-a-pénzzel, Smart Finance, gives you all the information, all the help and support, small videos, small clips to get acquainted with all the information. Either you are applying to a new university and starting new life in the university, either you have a family and somebody is just would like to invest in a new house, the first house or first apartment, somebody who's waiting for a baby, what kind of financial challenges on one hand and what kind of financial possibilities are available for them. And it goes through different life situations until preparing for pensioner's life. In each from age, I would say from age 14 until age 85, you can get any advice, whatever situation you are in. So I just would like to advise, and you have here once again the calculator, the online tool for family budgeting. But there are many other things which I won't enumerate. Please visit this website. Thank you for your attention. Please go home, tell your parents how to make family budgets, and that would be a very interesting exercise, I can assure you. I am looking forward that you will be able to convince your parents that family budgeting might be very useful, and I would advise that when new family financial objectives are enumerated, don't forget to enumerate your own goals and your own objectives, and I'm sure that parents will be happy to fix it in the family budget. Thank you very much.